We are being robbed blind. Robbed of our tax dollars, robbed of our vote, robbed of our voice, robbed of the truth, and robbed of our republic. Then the prosecutors are going to let the perpetrators go free? The biggest offender that I can find today is a man named Rob. When cops are telling the citizens to destroy evidence and then shooting other cops, you know it's bad. That's what we have today. How does it feel to get robbed and watch the people robbing you go free? I want to draw attention to the introduction to this show. When you watched the introduction, you saw a spy trying to get me to go along with robbing you. Everybody's doing it. They can tell you that because it's true. The feds are robbing us blind. They're stealing more than anyone. That's who the man on the CB is talking about in the introduction to this video. This is major organized crime, federal racketeering and treason on the half shell. We have fraud in every form, from the homeless shelters to aerospace technology. Here's the problem. The citizens still haven't figured out who's doing it and how they're doing it. It's the feds. The money comes from the feds. It's your money that the feds took from you, and the managers have the ability to control where it goes. Hello, everybody. I'm Ferris Broxton, and I've been robbed by corrupt government. This is my co-host, Josiah Royce. Have you been robbed by corrupt government?
Over and over again.
It's just all too common. I just got some material from one of our special agents in Williston, letting me know that there's millions of dollars missing over there, too. I don't think we're ever going to be able to get to that today. There's just so much corruption. Do you know how many millions of dollars have disappeared in North Dakota just during this news cycle?
Does anybody?
It's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. Our money is just disappearing. Law enforcement's hiring. I think we figured out why. We're going to find out real soon about this cop-on-cop crime. The state prosecutor is letting go a cop killer, trying to reduce this man that killed a cop and shot the woman with him. Why? I don't know. Why she's trying to let him off the hook? We're getting ready to find out. The FBI has 260 agents, and who knows how many exactly, but that's what they're saying. 260 agents in Fulton County, Georgia, to investigate election fraud. That's robbing our country. That's robbing us of our voice. I'm an eyewitness that should be brought forward in that case. Instead of our top political reporter, Rob Port, drawing attention to that, he's helping the socialist, communist, fascist control the elections right here in North Dakota. That's really jacked up. The corrupt North Dakota authorities have been so effective at keeping me from being heard in the top 2 national investigations that are well underway. But the eyewitness that stung the perpetrator can't be heard because they've robbed my voice. It's just unbelievable. Now we're going to go into that for just a second. Let's get graphic 1, please. This is the Fulton County Federal Building. That's the Richard Brevard Russell Federal Building. That's where all these FBI agents are going through this election fraud. So Sally Yates was the U.S. attorney that signed the FISA warrant against Trump. Sally Yates' family is married to the Russell family. Her family is the Russell Quillian Terrell family. They're intermarried with that group. They're all Masons, and they established Georgia and Fulton County.
What do you think Christmas is like at their house?
I don't know. I don't think anybody robs them.
Or I don't think they celebrate Christmas.
I don't know what they do. Yeah. I really don't know. What I know is that the same group that has been over the government were the people that were robbing us. Like, that's what I stung. I stung her robbing the citizens, and they won't bring me forward. So as they're having this investigation and they have all these, and she told me, we're going to fix the election. The elections. She's like, we're doing anything in our power to take over. Identified herself as the Freemasons. And so now I look at this, literally the name on the building is her family's, combined family name. And she was the U.S. attorney over that building for like 20 years. That's what it's the same group. It's just so ridiculous. But our same North Dakota authorities and in this the corruptions under here are trying to silence me and prevent me from being heard in those cases, even though I stung her. All of this corruption is right under the noses of Drew Wrigley, Nick Chase, and the FBI agent Alvin Winston. So Alvin Winston is from Fulton County, Georgia. Does that seem a little weird to you?
Convenient.
Yeah. Chris Wray appointed Alvin Winston to be over the area where I live and work. And Alvin Winston is the special agent in charge at the top of the FBI. He's out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, but it's over Minot, North Dakota. So every time I call the FBI and I can't get any response, that kind of explains why. Now, he's got this special title. His title is not just the special agent in charge, he's the human source validator. What do you think that means?
Well, first off, I'm curious, on a side note, you said every time that you can't get a hold of them. Is that every time? Because I was never able to get a hold of them.
Well, I call, and you're actually going to hear another eyewitness against federal corruption today, a very reputable, successful businessman, saying that he was threatened when he called the FBI. Threatened by a federal agent when he called the FBI. But yeah, you're going to hear him live on the video of him doing this. But I've got multiple recordings of me calling the FBI and saying I'm an eyewitness. Tommy James was here in this studio doing that with me and questioning them like, why are y'all hanging up the phone? And like, why won't you respond? I mean, it's literally that much of a joke. The investigation is robbing us blind. Now, there's good people in the FBI, but what we have to realize is the vast majority of them are still corrupt. There's still enough of them that they can keep me quiet, keep me from being heard. So it's kind of a like hilarious joke nationwide. Whenever everything that we've done here gets out, you know, Alvin Winston should be facing like the maximum penalty of law. All of these people, I mean, misprision of treason is a law that requires anybody who's aware of a treasonous plot, a plot against their country, to bring it to the next level. You go to the governor, you go to a federal judge, they're required to go to the president, anybody that's aware of this. I mean, if you know of a plot, that's the heart of the law, misprision of treason. It's a felony. And here we have it where it's commonplace, where the reporter, the biggest political reporter in town, who's an investigator, won't even touch it. He tries to throw it to his audience where there's a bunch of people in his audience that'll say, oh, he's crazy.
Well, he's got his minions kind of set up to do that, I think.
Well, that's a really well, I've documented that and I've taken note of them, and it's loud. It's really, really loud. So we got a political reporter that has a network, a support group that will attack the people that begin to oppose him. And I've watched people get on there and just make jokes, like say I'm crazy, you know, like, and the red glasses, that give it away. Anybody that wears those is crazy. And then he's got some minion that'll come in and attack that guy. And I'm like, wow, you know, but I've watched him, you know, I'm like, we're going to see him. We're going to talk about him today. We've got I've taken the screenshots. Most of the people on there are just typical, you know, I mean, there's some wackos, there's some normal people. I think most of the conservatives, most of the majority just don't say nothing.
No, because they're, frankly, chicken.
Yeah.
You know, they just go, oh, I don't want to poke the bear. But it's like, and for years, people have said to me, like, well, why do you poke the bear? I'm like, guys, I'm the bear.
That's just it, yeah.
I'm getting poked here. It's like, I'm the one that's under it, you know, getting bothered.
Well, unfortunately, you're in that rare class where, you know, you don't have kids. You don't have to worry about, you know, you don't have a girlfriend that's afraid of him being embarrassed right now at this moment. Delilah's got a lady, her sister, that she wants to introduce you to. So we'll get into that. But yeah, my girlfriend. We'll talk about this later. But so we'll get to that later. Mm-hmm. But so people that have kids are often really concerned, and I see that all the time. They're like, they see it. There's activists in the schools. There's bullies, and they just don't want to step out. And then, you know, I mean, you've had people challenge you. The guys that they put on, some of the guys they put on here. I mean, they put forward some dude, and I'm not going after him because he pretty much shut his mouth. But he really tried me. And when I looked him up, he was a all-state wrestler and a big attorney in the military and all this. And I'm like, wow, they really tried to pick somebody that would challenge me and literally bully me off of the website, and I think he figured out that wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to pan out for him. But that's what they've got, some guys like that now. And I'm going, this is an orchestrated group trying to control what people believe, control the narrative, and prevent the opposing voices from being heard. And if I was a little old man, I'm confident in my ability to defend myself. But if I was a little old man, I would be hesitant to stir up trouble with, some of these guys. They really are. They've got some thugs. And this is the thing, Rob Port lets it stand. That's the problem. And we're going to go, I've got some of those right here, but like literally Rob Port's got people on there that are either fake account or bullies, and he just leaves them up. Just literally throwing eggs in the face of people that have a differing opinion. And it's not, calling them like child molester supporters, and really, really obnoxious, provocative terms. And then getting on his show and acting like he wants to have a discussion. Genuinely, we got to talk about these things. We're going to get into all that. But he's a fraud. He's a fake. We're going to get into that real deep. So we're going to expose Rob Port. Communist News is what he's called. And they are taking over. Last week, the enforcers, like we were saying, trying to say we're crazy. Rob Port is an investigator. His dad was an investigator. He has a long history of investigating, but he won't even try to discredit my claims. This is rich. We're going to get into that later. First, let's take a look at what the cat dragged in. This is off the chain. We have some real news reporters right here in North Dakota covering some real explosive cases. 2 huge cases that are linked by one federal criminal. At least one. So, the Daniel Brejo murder, aggravated assault, and who knows what else case. And the massive Dunseith fraud, racketeering debacle, which Daniel Brejo is also involved in. This is the huge case, the injustice production that they're putting on. They've tried to cover this up. The prosecutor is trying to work out a plea deal to reduce the charges. I've been following this case and trying to figure out what the connection is, how this federal agent investigator is involved in shooting and killing a man here, shooting his girlfriend, and then also being an investigator in the Dunseith massive fraud racketeering operation. He's not been charged with that, but you're going to hear testimony from a witness that makes it sound like he really should have been charged for a whole lot of stuff. So this is wild, y'all. They had a facility they ran for years as a fraud, taking in who knows how much federal money. This is financial crimes beyond the scope of your imagination. So this Hofer man, real respectable businessman, real well-spoken, smart, and courageous, buys this building, to the best of my understanding, and that part of the case hasn't been presented as much. Jonathan Starr produced it with the Dakotan, and they talked about it, and I followed it then, but I didn't understand it. It's really, really in-depth and complicated, and it took place over many, many years. But so it sounds like this guy bought a facility and gets in there, and they find like rooms full of blood. They've got like military vehicles showing up and like parking inside, and I mean all kinds of crazy devices, and they go to figure out what they are, and they're like, wow, they're really expensive. It's wild. It's a case that's worth following. We're going to get into a little bit of it today, what we know about it. So it's federal money, your tax money, massive amounts of money used to run a facility illegally. Injustice.com is the best place I know to send you for the Brejo murder case, for the Brejo investigation side and the Dunseith debacle. You might be able to find some of that by going and searching the Dakotan. Jonathan Starr, a real reporter, covered that for a while. It was really in-depth and complicated. There's a lot of footage on that, and a lot of people have watched it, but there's these two are tied together. So both of the guys, the federal agent that murdered the man here, both of them are cops. Both of them are top cops. Drug task force. Both of them were on the North Dakota led Ward County drug task force. So as we're talking about, like, cops could set you up and take your vehicle if you want.
Yep.
Well, obviously they can. You know what I mean? I mean, this dude right here is going out and like shooting people and gunning down. I mean, it's bizarre. So drug task force, federal agents, military research officers, they've filled all these positions, weapons technology, and the nuclear wings at the Air Force, not buffaloes.
Yeah.
So different nuclear wings, but they're into all this like high tech military stuff, and that's bizarre. You're gonna hear some of the testimony from some of the people covering it, and the reporter that covers this, she's awesome. So the witness right here, me, is being ignored in the case that we talked about earlier. But the witness in the Dunseith debacle case, this lady that was shot by Briejo and her boyfriend killed, murdered right in front of her face while she's like being shot at the same time, she's being ignored. The prosecutor's trying to let off the federal agent, investigator that carried out the crime. She's trying to reduce his charges without talking to the victim. And the victim's like, what's going on, man? You know, so she's trying to work out a plea deal. And fortunately, the judge rejected the plea deal, which is a good sign for, good sign that the judge is, not on board with that. But it's crazy government corruption. It's a fraudulent investigation, obviously, and the media's blowing the whistle on it. That's what's so loud. That's what's great. This is a real reporter that works for a real news agency covering some real serious crime. This is Lori Hines. She's a Beck News reporter. Lori Hines exposing the state's prosecutor for trying to help a cop killer get off the hook. Let's see clip 1, please.
Why is the state's lead prosecutor, Stark County State's Attorney Amanda Engelstead, seemingly tanking her own case to the detriment of her own sole surviving victim witness?
Like they're trying to erase me like I never existed, and that this was just a ridiculous accident. It's insane.
And why, in one breath, does Engelstead confidently imply to the district court that the state knows what they're looking for within Beck's materials?
What the state is doing here is simply its due diligence to attempt to gather the information that it knows it's out there.
Yet, in another breath, she states the opposite to North Dakota Supreme Court.
I know what is, I know to some degree, right, what is in those
Watch the lady with the glasses.
public, ear footage, and I know that in the event that what I believe to be in there will perhaps be given to the state is likely going to be discoverable under Rule 16, and that's why the state made the argument that it did.
The defense counsel is the one that should be doing this, not the prosecutor.
The defense counsel is the one that should be doing this, not the prosecutor. Why is the prosecutor trying to help the defendant instead of looking at all these extras? I mean, because you're getting ready to hear some testimony. I'm going to play some testimony showing that this guy probably should be under investigation for a whole bunch of other pretty serious. I mean, it's right there in front of you. These, Lori Hines has put that out there. So what we're seeing here is an injustice. The name of the podcast series that they put out here documentary is Injustice. You can watch it by going to injusticend.com. I almost said .gov because of how unjust our government is. So the prosecutor's trying to collect information to defend somebody somehow and justify a cop on cop crime. But what's really, it looks like the state's trying to get the evidence so they can sweep it all under the rug. That's what it looks like to me, because they're trying to go to the news and take the evidence away from the news. So in this huge case, that's really like, whoa, hang on, There's not the debate of should we duplicate it and keep a copy. I'm not hearing that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, should we be able to go and take it from them? It's testimonial evidence, but at this point, I'm sure they've already, in the news media, they've probably already duped it and all that, but they're trying to set case precedent. This is a theft. They're robbing us of our rights is what they're trying to do. That's what they're trying to give the government more power and take the ability of the media away. And they've already apparently taken some steps. If you watch these videos, this series is amazing. You can learn a lot of what's going on. I'm really, really happy to see these people covering this.
I have to make it a part-time job to catch up.
It is, yeah, it is. They're on season 4 or episode 4 now. So episode's 4 out, and I think it's the best one so far. So we keep seeing prosecutors trying to take evidence home so they can control people. That's what the FBI was doing. That's what the grand jury investigation down in South Florida, the lady was fired. She changed the evidence to be labeled cake recipes and downloaded it on her computer and took it home. She got caught. She got fired. But that's what you see happening is the FBI agents and the prosecutors think it's more profitable for me to steal the evidence and use it for my own benefit to blackmail somebody or sell it to them than to do my job, honestly. That's the state of affairs of our federal authorities. It's pretty jacked up. So how bad does the corruption have to be for us to get to the point where you have cops killing cops? I mean, literally going to their house and killing them and shooting their girlfriend. It's absolutely insane. It's got to be really, really bad. I mean, to the point where I have to scratch my head. I have to be like, how do you even call that in? You know, I mean, you're the cop that goes to the scene of the crime. What do? You show up and you're like, hey, yeah, we got a 86 on 50. No dispatch. What I'm saying is smoke to Smokey. I mean, how much tax money do we have to spend when the cops are killing the other cops? Who's doing the police report? More cops. Who's doing the investigation? More cops. It's this whole like less government thing all of a sudden starts to make a lot more sense.
Asking them to investigate themselves is one of the most asinine things out there, and that's how a lot of departments work. I've looked into it when they talk about, but internal affairs division. You know who oftentimes is on internal affairs?
The same,
yeah. It's the same.
Cops, yeah,
it's whoever wasn't on duty at that time. So it's like
whoever's convenient.
You could be patrol buddies one night, and it's like, hey, on Thursday I'm supposed to investigate you. That's all right, but on Tuesday you're supposed to investigate me. It's like, what? It's not a separate division like people think it is.
I've been through that before. By the time you're complaining and you're going up the ladder complaining, and then when they realize they're caught, they're like, well, actually, I shouldn't be handling this because that's my boss. I'm like, yeah, you should have told me that like 2 weeks ago.
No kidding.
You're taking a complaint against your boss. Come on now. And you didn't tell me for 2 weeks. But that's the you find it everywhere when you get into, you know, the government corruption. But here's the one that, to me, when I look at this cops killing cops, I'm reminded of a story that I already covered last year in season 1. And it was a story of Sally Yates' family hitman, Billy Burt, one of the deadliest men in Georgia, one of the deadliest men ever in the United States, but I think they call him the deadliest man in Georgia. Killed like 50-something people. Hitman for the Dixie Mafia, but he's run by the government. It was Sally Yates' parents that lived in a little hometown and ran it. Her father was a federal judge and all that. He took his own life. Now, I mean, this is, you know, these are the people that are running the system, the top government officials. But his name was Billy Burt. He dressed up like an FBI agent and went in to kill a witness that was being protected by cops, and the cops helped him do it. They literally had him in a house guarded by police, and then they all left and let the hitman know when to show up, and the hitman showed up dressed as an FBI agent, went in and shot him. It's just ridiculous, man. But so this was a crime the government covered up. You can watch, like I said, my season 1, so it's in there somewhere, Billy Burt, the Hitman, or you can look it up online, Billy Burt, you'll find him, B-I-R-T. This is the level of corruption you get to when the Freemasons are running your government. That's who was doing it then, that's who's doing it now. I'm just glad we have some independent media investigating it. So at this point, we're going to pause to recognize the Woman of the Week. We voted on this. This is going to be graphic 2, please. This is Lori Hens. That's right. Lori Hens is the amazing Woman of the Week. We had a runner-up, too. So I don't know if you guys have seen this. This is Anika Niles. Anika has filled the seat of the greatest drummer of all time, Neil Peart of Rush. Clip 2, please. I love women. I mean, is that not amazing?
It is, although I'll keep my arguments about who the greatest drummer is ever to myself. For now.
Oh, okay. Was it Keith Moon?
No.
Now, who are you going to say here? You're going to say...
All right, I'll throw out a couple of names that I think rival that. Simon Phillips,
okay.
Jeff Porcaro, Mike Portnoy.
Okay.
At least they all hit above Neil Peart for me.
It's for you. Okay.
No disrespect.
I got it. Yeah, but so... Anyway, this is, I love women. I don't know. I was born like this. It's not my fault. But that was just incredibly amazing to me to see a woman fill his seat in that. I mean, they couldn't find anybody to carry that band.
Yeah.
They literally, it shut. Like, I mean, you know, Led Zeppelin died because John Bonham, and nobody was able to fill his seat. They were like, we can't carry on without our drummer. Ultimately, you know who they got? His son, Jason Bonham. And so it's just so impressive to me to see her do that. But I'm sorry, we're talking about murder, a facility that was used for all sorts of aerospace fraud. We're kind of buried here in corruption. I'm just going to give you guys a little tip. Watch Injustice.com. To prepare yourself for this next explosive revelation of corruption, let's take a moment to stretch and prepare for mind expansion. Are you ready for this? This one's going to be like, if you thought the last one with Lori Hines was intense, wait till you see this. All right, clip 3, please.
Called Dunseith Declassified was focused on the case that I am prosecuting at this moment.
That's a bit of a stretch, like many things Special Prosecutor Engelstead says. Beck's Dunseith Declassified series actually examined the Brejo nexus between Brejo's Minot murder case and Brejo's very concerning investigatory involvement in a nearby Dunseith, North Dakota nuclear, Air Force, military defense, aerospace parts building site scandal at the Canadian border.
It's separate but linked stories.
Numerous evidence collection waves allegedly kicked off. State and federal investigators apparently descended on the site through 2023.
Found nuclear-related stuff. We found defense missile sensor technology. We found flight sensor technology. We found evidence of a scheme that had been running for years and was still continuing in the community that should have been shut down in 2015 when that facility closed.
The Minot Air Force Base had a closing responsibility on this site based on what it used to do, that they failed.
This has got some interesting wrinkles to it and twists and turns along the way. When you get into that whole nuclear facility and the connection between the parties here.
I don't believe in coincidences. Sounds a little odd.
Interestingly, Nick Van Helt's nuclear security forces work would have correlated with Minot Air Force Base's 91st Missile Wing.
I get really scared and call the family, and the family member says, you know, you have a second cousin in the Pentagon. Well, I didn't know that. Brigadier General at the time, Stacy Jo Hoosier, who's now a 2-star general, she's Air Force. She immediately tells me my life is in danger. I very quickly realized that from 2015 to 2017, she was commander of the Minot 91st Missile Wing. She's part of the group that didn't close this site.
Brejo, the alleged...
That's crazy. Your life is in danger. Oh, by the way, I'm your relative, and I'm the person in charge that didn't close that facility. I mean, you talk about a murder mystery, wild story. This whole thing and the way it ties together is incredible. And they definitely, I'm 100% for making sure that the media is able to do that kind of investigation without the state coming in and taking stopping them, taking the evidence from them and so forth.
Good luck.
Lori Hines just put together about 17 different crimes that should probably be stored in a nuclear facility. The one question that I had when I started watching this show is the cop killer, the federal agent Brejo, because he's related to both the Dunseith and the Minot couple. So he gunned down the Minot couple, the police officer and his girlfriend, and then he was the investigator, one of the investigators for Dunseith. I think the answer is somewhere in that statement that, I mean, there's just so much they cover there. If not, I know it's in episode 4 somewhere, or at least a lot of really, really good clues. So, did you see the real reporters in there covering that story versus like what we're talking about here with Rob Port? I mean, you saw these guys that are really like digging in and latching on. I know you saw Lori Hines, but let's get a picture of graphic 3, please. So this is Jonathan Starr and Kyler Collum. So these are the guys that just hanging loose covering this, and they see this and they're like, wow, yeah. So there's 2 independent stories here, and they've got a link. You know, I mean. That's what's so fascinating, and it might be, that's the question, is this a link for the motive to the murder? But like we're saying, these guys are also in these other police forces together, and there's just so much going on that it's really hard to say where it came from, you know? And this is the thing, these guys here aren't investigative reporters. Rob Port is.
Yeah.
And he lives right here in Minot. And his father's an investigator. But I don't hear him like doing, you know what I mean? Like, all I see him doing is, instead of trying to go dig out the corruption and ferret it out, I just see him going the other way and trying to...
Claiming like there's nothing to see here.
Yeah. There's not, I'll throw this to the audience, and the people I'm going to investigate are you, Josiah Royce. I'm going to have you on and investigate you and have a prosecutor on. And so we make sure that you don't procure that governor or that mayor position. We're going to control the government. We got murder. We got embezzlement. Looks like federal racketeering by federal investigator. We got embezzlement in Minot. What, Elizabeth Larson embezzled over $60,000 of your money. So how much was really stolen? She was facing $250,000 in fines and 10 years in prison, in a federal prison. She was given probation. What's going on with that? No, it's not. That's not. Yep. Mm-hmm.
People go to jail for victimless crimes all the time. And by crimes, I just mean like an infraction, a statutory code violation.
It's like whoever's arranging the sentence should be checked for offshore banking profits. I mean, I really feel like they just take the money and they funnel it wherever they want. They're just like funneling it to wherever they think it's going to come back to them, or they can control. Because it wasn't $60,000 that was missing; it was like $1.3 million.
Yeah.
And so when the person that stole $60,000 isn't testifying against other people, and we're not seeing where the rest of the money went, I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, so
who's paying her legal fees?
Who's letting her off?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, what's up with the judge that's not doing something about this? I mean, it blows my mind. It absolutely blows my mind. The prosecutor and the judge, a few local media were, kind of complaining about that, but there was a couple. I think KX News and some people covered that. I mean, that's pretty significant. I'm glad, it's good to see the media covering that. I don't know that anybody's really like dug into it, but to me, I want some explanations. I want somebody to be able to go to that judge and be like, hey, man, what's the deal? What needs to be fixed here so that this doesn't happen again? Because like I said, we got millions. I mean, it's just every time I turn on the news, there's millions here, millions there missing. And I was like, who do you think? That's your money. We pay for that.
You know what part I didn't catch yet? And maybe we don't have time to talk about it today, but how did they catch it?
I don't know.
I think who caught on?
Well, that's the thing. The investigators can investigate, and they find things they can't hide. And like, oh, well, I can't turn a blind eye to this. The person that's not as skilled at stealing it, they don't have the ties to Jeffrey Epstein. The guys at the top had the ties to Jeffrey Epstein and the money laundering. They're a little more clever. The guys at the top, like the people who run FISA, that's what I've documented because I've seen it. They've tried to do it with me. They have the ability to make people go do these things, so that when something does go wrong, they've got a scapegoat.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? But that's what I'm like. If you took that scapegoat and you made them do that full sentence, they would sing like a canary. One of the stories that I was exposed to, it wasn't here. It was in Alabama. A lady that was in a probate court, so she's dealing with estates or whatever. Somebody's estate isn't claimed or whatever. Dealing with probate court, and she's stealing all this money. And ultimately, the lady rats on her. And this is how, like, the judge would be too smart to do this. But her assistant rats on her, and she's literally, the documents that come out, she's saying, you're not paying me enough. That's why I'm ratting you out. And the judge is like, you're already caught stealing. If you rat me out, you'll be caught. And the lady's like, I don't care. I'm gonna go to jail so that you can be exposed. And it's just kind of like, that's how it works. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, well, who's investigating this? And you go back and you find out, and you're like, oh, her neighbor. Somebody lives in the same little town as her that has all these different ties and connections. Why is she the one investigating?
Well, and when it comes to paying attention and noticing such things, in case I forget to make this point later as we proceed on with other things we're going to talk about, when somebody is called crazy, it's a very dismissive thing, like calling somebody a conspiracy theorist. Right. And what you'll notice in terms of just pattern recognition is that's what they'll always do when they don't want you to even ask any more questions. See, with a thorough investigation, you shouldn't be afraid of questions. So instead of dismissing an entire demographic and just saying, well, they're crazy people, look at the Charlie Kirk murder. Anybody that's questioning, the narrative is called crazy. Anyone that questions an election is called crazy. Anyone that questions all this stuff, we're called crazy.
I think I look at a lot of these situations and I think it's an incompetence on multiple levels, but that's part of the reason why I wanted to be, as a lawmaker. That's part of the reason I ran for U.S. House, is because I can see these problems and I'm able to be like, okay, this is how you solve the problem. The way you solve the problem is you say, you have a mandatory sentence of the full, whatever, like that crime there. You're going to pay $250,000. You're going to pay interest on it, and you're going to do 10 years in prison until nobody has any questions that you can't answer. In other words, you're sitting there in prison, and any reporter that wants to come up and investigate gets to come up and investigate. As soon as you decide you don't want to cooperate, you're doing the full sentence. As long as there's a citizen whose money you stole that has a question for you, you're going to answer it. You know what I mean? You have to show beyond a shadow of a doubt that you've got good faith, and then you're not protecting somebody. But that's not, we're so far away from that real accountability that they know that they can get away with it. I mean, these thugs that are getting on this website that are intimidating, trying to run witnesses off and so forth, usually when they realize that I'm an investigator, that I'm going to go back and figure out if they're a Freemason or whatnot, usually they're smart enough to be like, oh, you know what, the Freemasons keep records of who they are. We can't get those.
Yeah.
But they realize at some point they're stepping out and interfering with a national investigation into treason, and I'm screaming, hey, let's track down the people that are doing this and check them for Freemasonry. They realize that they can be caught and they can be sentenced to 20 years in prison, federal racketeering. And most of them are smart enough to shut up and disappear. Some of them aren't, but some of them are just puppets. Some of them aren't. They're just little low-lying players. They're not smart enough to figure it out. But it's having enough experience to look at the way these people operate and knowing how to put the stitches in the law and in the transparency of the process so that they can't continue this. Because we can't, we are just literally throwing our country away, throwing our own money away. But that's what it is. And I just messed up on my teleprompter and went completely berserk and got way off base. So I don't know where I'm at right now.
That's fine. My pages haven't moved.
But we're gonna go through this. I think we did the beginning of that Dunseith debacle, and we have this like news cycle that the money's just we just keep seeing this, but this Dunseith debacle has been going on for a few years now.
Oh, it's crazy when people think that this sort of thing doesn't happen here. They're like, oh yeah, New York or Philadelphia, big cities like that, and it's like, what makes you think that any part of it is straight and clean and wouldn't operate that same way? If it works on the big level, on the national level with elections and stuff, because people go, well, yeah, but they don't do that with local elections. It's like, that would make the bigger operations more obvious, even when it comes to election fraud, stuff like that. It's like, because it's all about patterns and comparisons. Right. So if on a federal level they messed with things and on a local level they didn't, the contrast would be too strong. So you have to have a matching pattern in terms of vote popularity and everything. You'd have to be corrupt on the local level too in order to cooperate it. Well,
when you look at the structure of the Freemasons and how they operate, it's a pyramid. And the people, that's what you're describing and what I'm seeing. Like I said, I came to this because the person that was doing it told me. Like, she literally had a plan. She's like, I'm over this area now and I'm coming to power and I'm going to take everything I can while I come to power. They know that. But we're going to get into the Freemasons. That's one of the things I'm excited that you're brave and you're willing to cover that, because a lot of people like chicken out and they freak out when the Freemasons start playing all the sinister games they play. But I've investigated these people and done a whole lot of research. I should say researched them. I shouldn't say investigated them other than in my case. But I've researched them historically, and I've seen that like over and over again. The Great Britain's the best example. The citizens in Great Britain know who's doing it. They have these, massive heists, massive gold heists, massive bank robberies, and they go to start to investigate, and then they start to have problems with the investigator, and then the investigator is a Freemason, and then some media guy will get in there, and it's the media that bust them. And we're going to play some videos of those, but they're huge heists and murders and guys taking their own lives. Literally where the Freemason's caught and the Freemason goes out and kills himself. And that's what the brothers are all cheering. Putting it in the paper. He was a loyal brother. And you're like, wow. You think, I mean, that's really what it's a miserable life. When you look at like Sally Quillian Yates' dad taking his own life, that's what this is. You know what I'm saying? She's like, well, he's mentally ill. Well, if he's at the top as a judge and he's mentally ill, then that's a real like serious problem. But when I go back and I research and I find these cases and I'm like, oh no, wait a minute. He was like caught here in this case, it's different. But that's what these people, they get into the Freemasons, they get far enough up there and they find that that's what they've got, is they've got a life of crime and they've sworn loyalties and they have all these things that they can't get out of. One of the highest suicide rate jobs is a judge. Superior Court judges. Yeah. That's just a fact. I had a friend, in fact, I put out a explanation for Rob Port because Rob Port was talking about I was explaining how he used that Latin. He starts out and he says, the world wants to be deceived in Latin, and the finishing sentence is, so let them be deceived. Well, the guy that taught me, see, Jesus did the same thing when he was on the cross. That's the same technique I used to sting Sally Yates. But the guy that taught me about that, Psalm 22, which is how Jesus did it in the Bible, is a man who was like his dad. He went to the University of Georgia. His dad was a Superior Court judge, and he was in the university going in all the fraternities. He was going to be a judge, and his dad took his own life, which is, I mean, it happens so frequently. And then he was living that horrid frat life, going to be a big attorney, a big lawyer, whatever. And he got out of it and gave his life to Christ and became a missionary. And then obviously he'll tell you it's the best thing he ever did. So I think I found my place here where I got lost. So we were talking about the reporters, Jonathan Starr and Kyler Collum, and then we got into murder, embezzlement, larceny right here in Minot, and what we think some of the solutions can be. And that's one of the things is letting you throw the solution out there to the citizens and the lawmakers and the people that watch this when you have a voice. So that's the problem. Is I watch Rob Port and I watch these big political reporters. They don't want the solutions. They're not pushing for the solutions that will solve the crime. You know what I mean? And that's what you need to do, is you need to get that into the discussion with the citizens so the citizens know what to ask for. Like, is the dude a Freemason? Well, why is that relevant? Did he take an oath of loyalty to his brothers that stands above? What is that oath of loyalty? And that's what we're going to get into when we get into the Freemasons. Is I've got these guys that were in the Freemasons, and the videos that, I mean, they've dedicated their lives to like exposing the corruption of it, and they're talking about like what those oaths are and how they function, how they operate. So it's really, really interesting information. That'll be another thing for another show. But the feds seem here to be missing the obvious and letting the criminals go, either because the trail leads back to them or because they're too busy robbing the next guy. Now, Hofer, the man that owned that bought that facility that they were using for all that, it's organized crime, it's racketeering, they were making stabilizers for airplanes. Yeah. For one, it was one of the things they were doing that I followed. I don't know all the details of all of what they were doing, but they were rebuilding these discs that were like $15,000 a pop. And it's like a control on your computer that say would control the suspension, but they're for airplanes. They got to be rebuilt under like these real high tech, like a dust-proof room, special equipment and everything. And they're doing it in this factory, charging like $15,000 a pop. Well, here's the thing. They're not just stealing everybody's money by charging $15,000 and doing a $1,500 job. They're doing it in a fashion that endangers everybody's life, because this is what is going on airplanes. So I look at that and I'm like, oh, wow. And we've seen all these like sightings of alien craft where it shows up and the alien craft seem to be floating around on their displays. And they say that can't be our airplanes can't move like that. And I look at that and I'm like, well, is that not the locators malfunctioning? Is that not what's causing some of these plane wrecks that people can't explain? The fraud, waste, and abuse, the theft of the federal government, is that not what's like the problem here? I mean, is that why the general's his second cousin that was a general is saying your life's in danger? It's all pretty, like we should have more investigators. I mean, these people that get in and dig in and find these things, a lot of times they're like me and you. They got to have a full-time job. They can't live and make money because they can't make enough money by putting out these videos. Like, we know we're not paying Beck News, you know.
Yeah.
We're not paying. Now, at the same time, you got Governor Armstrong, the guy that wants to cover it up, referring to the news channel and saying it's got 12 viewers. No, Governor Armstrong's a liar. It's a whole lot of people that are interested, but they're trying to kill that free media. They're trying to rob our voice.
Yeah.
That's what's so disturbing to me. So the killer, Briejo, he says, this is Hofer, the man that owns the facility. He says Briejo instructed him to destroy the evidence. That's really, really disturbing. This guy, and I'm getting ready to play the video of it if I can find it here, but this guy says that the FBI threatened him, or the federal agent Briejo threatened him for calling the FBI. So once again, this series is off the chain, but watch for that in this clip. It's going to have tons of jaw-dropping testimony and information in it about what they were doing right here in North Dakota. Clip 4, please.
It was more than financial embezzlement crimes, and it was real crimes.
So Hofer called Zachmeyer, and on the morning of September 16, 2022, Zachmeyer showed up on site in Dunseith, as did Air Force OSI agent Richard Gene Brown from the Minot base.
Brown pulls out a file and he says, your site wasn't scrubbed, give me your keys, Air Force Estate. So he spends 1 or 2 hours outside in the light rain, and he comes in and he says, my boss is one more guy with eyes on.
That's when then Federal Homeland Security Investigations agent Daniel Brejo was pulled into the mix.
Maybe it's much more than just a murder case.
I was being set up for my own witness tampering and obstruction.
This is Agent Brejo after an attempted break-in at the facility the day after their site visit. My boss has said it is your property and you are in your right to destroy it. That seems best to prevent any further issues. 2 days before, he emailed and said I needed to hold and wait for the State Department. He then threatened me for calling the Minot FBI.
Everything. I've been looking at everything. Why are these people together?
What that man just said there, he said, this is Briejo after a day after an attempted break-in. And they go through laying out this information so fast, and I'm going, wow, do the citizens get this? Are they picking up on this? Because it's obvious the investigators are trying to ignore it. This lady that's prosecuting this, like Lori Hines, is covering it, but the lady that she's exposing for trying to, not do her job, trying to let this guy off, she should be going and saying, hey, wait a minute. You said that Briejo sent you a letter saying, destroy the evidence. My boss says he's trying to cover himself. So my boss says you should probably destroy that evidence.
Yeah.
But when does the letter come? By email. The day after somebody attempted to break in the facility. This guy, we're talking about mafia, organized crime by federal agents. This is some really jacked up stuff. That's without him being the guy that necessarily tried to break in. We don't know that he was. Obviously, there might be that possibility. What we know is that he just presented evidence that the federal agent was telling him to destroy the evidence. He just presented that right in front of our faces. Why is that not being indicted? Why is the lady trying to let Briejo off early instead of trying to get him indicted on more charges? Why isn't that being explained? That's my question. But so I see all this and I watch it and I'm just going, wow, how much money were they stealing? How much money? We know that it's probably a massive amount. If it's $15,000 a pop to rebuild one of these devices the size of a hockey puck, and they got a facility set up there. This poor man just bought this facility and tried to move in there. And some of the stories I've heard, just clips I've heard, like walking in and finding a room full of blood and different, I'm just like, wow, crazy stuff. So
That'd be bothersome.
He says, the words out of his mouth, he says, I was being set up for my own witness tampering and obstruction. What Briejo was doing, telling him to destroy that evidence the day after somebody tried to break into his facility, is Briejo was telling him to commit a crime, destroying that evidence. It sounds like a pretty serious crime. Both of these Ward County Task Force officers involved in this hit, the cop killer and the killie, both. You heard what Hofer said and proved with evidence. He was being set up to be charged for a crime by top federal investigator. Some guy just has too many bullets in his gun. The prosecutor's trying to let him off, but it sounds to me like the whole thing centers around Briejo a lot more than anybody's mentioning. Who's been charged with all the fraud? Where's all these people that worked at the facility that are taking all this money? Because they've got the documentations of all this, delivery people showing up and so forth. Who's manufacturing those flight control discs illegally? Who's endangering the lives of anyone and everyone on those aircraft that they sell those to and install them on? That's a liability that's still ongoing today. We wouldn't even know about all this corruption if it wasn't for brave reporters like Jonathan Starr at the Dakotan, Lori Hines, and Beck News. If we relied on people like Rob Port, the investigator, to do like what we think they're doing and what they like act like they're doing, we'd be getting robbed blind worse than we are. We need investigative reporters. Instead of investigating the fraud of our top authorities, he's investigating guys like you. This is the man that came out and brought false accusations against a political candidate the day before the election. The governor's enemies, right? So I knew this was going to come back to Rob Port. I was trying to stay away from it, but everything just keeps funneling right back to him, as I'm like, this is the problem. When somebody starts pushing this false narrative and trying to divide the party instead of pushing for the investigations and investigating.
I got to poke at this for a second. Do you remember the first time you had me in here and we were talking about the prosecutor that Rob brought on, to go after me? Yeah. And I laughed when finding out who he was, because as soon as I hung up that interview, I said that guy they brought on, whoever he was, I said they should have hired a professional prosecutor, because what he was trying to do, he sucked at it, and then it turns out he is a prosecutor. But with Rob Port, it's so funny now that I find out what you said about him being a actual investigator
and his dad being on the police force.
Because when I was on his show, the same show, I'm like, man, dude sucks at what he does, because unless he's just deliberately lying to the audience.
That's just it. That's my whole point, is he knows better. In all of this, he knows better.
Yeah.
Including his instinct, his natural instinct and response, if he's an honest person, is to try to get to the bottom of it. But instead, he's like, he's a very, very skilled deceiver. That's what I keep saying, is Rob Port is a Pied Piper for the communist socialist deception.
Well, but when he actually says something like, well, yeah, so I guess Josiah wasn't too happy about me exposing his criminal history, which is not criminal, it's arrest history. But I'm like, I posted it on YouTube years ago. It's like, I've been trying to get this message out, and it's like, do you think you're investigating, you're exposing something that I've already broadcasted?
You're just maligning it to try to defame a candidate that's not part of your clique. Yeah. And that's what, but I mean, he did it to Becker, right? So the day before the election, he came out and he lodged false legal. In fact, I had a very reputable person that really pays attention to the news come to me and be like, I saw that. That was wrong. That was bad. I mean, I just had to glance at it and be like, wait a minute, there's no crime here. I mean, apparently Becker, what it sounds to me like, was Julie Fedorchak dropped out of the race for the Republican endorsement. And Becker said, yeah, Julie dropped out of the race, so I've got the endorsement. And somebody misunderstood that and thought that Julie dropped out of the race altogether, not the race for the Republican endorsement. It sounds to me like that's all that happened, and Rob Port's trying to act like the guy needs to be prosecuted.
Yeah.
There's no reason that Rick Becker is sitting there going, he's a dirtbag. Because that's what I see he goes after people, he presents a false narrative, but then he gets down with the lies and the deception and protects the people when there's really legitimate claim. Like everybody's sitting there going, the governor should not be doing this. And he's protected him.
He deliberately avoids asking the critical questions.
Yeah. Yep. He brought a criminal prosecutor to come on his show and bear false witness against you. And then the guy, I mean, he's literally like, you're like, look, I don't think we need to have police out, trying to give people for doing tickets 5 over and keeping a job for that status, to have enough police to justify their...
At the taxpayer's expense.
Right, to justify their employment by going around and trying to get... And the next thing I know, he's got you, like the city that you would be in charge of, the people would be driving through the school zone 20 over, And he said, well, I wouldn't hesitate to, everybody else it's going to be a madhouse. I mean, it's just, he takes something and he twists it 4 times to a magnitude where it's obvious he's a false witness.
Yeah.
And then
he's got an agenda.
And then they say sane washing, crazy. And I watched him do that with you. I watched him do it with Tuttle. I watched him do it with, he trying to keep me from being heard because they know I'm a huge liability. If my case gets heard nationwide, where's that going to leave these people?
Well, and then furthermore, even when it comes to, I want to point this out in case people don't know, because if they don't know what they don't know. Out there on Facebook, Zachary Sherwood and stuff like people like that we've talked about before, trying to say that my lawsuits against the police are frivolous and without standing and stuff. I know but it's like for the general audience, a judge has to look at the case and approve it before it gets on the docket, before it's even out there, right. Before it's like when I file it, you can't just file whatever you want. It has to get approved. So my lawsuits are therefore valid for consideration because of what I presented for evidence already. Yeah. So as far as people saying, "Oh, it's crazy," or it's this, that, and the other, it's like, really? Because the entire system couldn't duck it. They
don't understand. And so when you have somebody that's doing that's deceiving the public, it's important to educate the public. So that's why I'm like, I'm not against his supporters, which we're going to get into some of the responses here and how this response was, but it's more that the public becomes educated, because like Rob Port attacked Gerald Goerick, accused him of threatening.
Yep.
He wasn't charged. He didn't threaten anybody. He just stood as a spokesman for the people. He stood up and said, "I'm going to speak. I've been elected to speak. I'm going to speak. Let me talk." And he said something like coming across a bench or something, but it was there was no threat there. And then after Gerald Goerick was charged in this really suspicious situation, but he stood up against the governor and he said, or stood up against the people that, not just the governor, but the people that got elected by the party and then changed their position, the people that Rob Port sides
Julie
with.
Fedorchak.
Yeah, he said we should pull the R from there. You took a vote. The citizens voted for that. But he was just a man that was brave enough to speak out.
The delegation did,
right,
including me.
That's right, I did too. And then they were brave enough to speak out. And I sat there and I said, this is the man that spoke the will of the people. Next thing you know, he's got felony charges. And then they're trying him in the media. And this is what was so loud to me, was Chad Oban's wife came on, and I did a show, I called her out for it. Chad Oban's wife came on and said she was Gerald Goerick's neighbor. The first time I saw that, I'm like, oh, wow, who is this lady? She's Gerald Goerick. Like Rob Port went and found Gerald Goerick's neighbor to come on the show and say that she's scared of this man. She wasn't his neighbor. Literally, this is a conspiracy. This is what Rob Port and Oban's wife did, is they literally put her up on this show because it would be kind of obvious for somebody to jump on it if Oban did it. So they get his wife to come on and say that she's his neighbor and she's terrified of him. And it's a conspiracy to gain control of politics. It's just so disgusting. But that's what we see, and that's what I want his audience to see and realize, that he's just a smooth talking deceiver, but that's what you got. So
I don't personally know anybody that actually believes him anyway. So.
And he's got a group of defending, going in and intimidating the people that try to speak and give the truth, or even just to don't, try to speak against him. Mm. So that's how that went down. So Rob Port is the most influential political reporter, okay, and he's deceiving the citizens. That's my claim. He's the voice of the conservative Republican and Republican Party, that he's hijacked that voice, and he's accused the people of that party of being outlaws. Okay, so he's gone through and he's called the mainstream conservatives, radicals, right wing. What did he
extremists,
call extremists? Yeah, and he called the Sons of Liberty an extremist right wing group. Okay, so as he claims, because he says no, I claim that I want less government and these different things. So as he claims that, I want to point out that how much of a fraud Rob Port is, because this is the group, this is their shirt, this is what they stand for: national pride. We love our country. That's what Rob Port claims. Second Amendment rights, states' rights, voter ID, limited big government, poll watchers, fair media, lower taxes, keep the country open in the southern border, and close the southern border. That's almost exactly what you're going to hear Rob Port saying that he stands for now. And he called them extreme radicals.
Well, look what he calls me, and then he calls himself a constitutional conservative. Well, I'm a constitutional candidate. Made fun of that. So it's like, well, okay.
Now, he's gone to an effort to go in and divide and conquer and it's a real strategic effort. But when I look at what he does and what he says, and we're going to expose more of it here, it's just really sad. But he's got these guys being like Bonnie and Clyde radicals. They want to make Gerald Gorick out to be Doc Holliday, and I'm looking at the whole thing, and I'm like, do you guys know who like Bonnie and Clyde and Doc Holliday are? Those are Freemasons. Those were the outlaws that were part of the Latin-speaking community, the Freemasons. That's why they got away with being outlaws. That's who Rob Port's getting down with. That's who the governor is. That's who the attorney general is. That's who the U.S. attorney is. The same secret society. So it's like they're trying to paint these people as outlaws, and we're witnessing all this outlaw behavior that we've been talking about today and all this major government corruption. And it's like, no, dude, you're the one that's protecting the outlaws, the feds that are robbing us blind. You're the one that's protecting the organized crime and presenting yourself as this guy that's, you know, doing everything, and then
controlled opposition.
Yeah, and then when somebody like me steps up and says, "Hey, no, this ain't right. This guy's deceived." He's got a group of thugs that's going to come in and start trying to intimidate me and insult me and all this, and I'm like, okay, let's figure out who these people are. And most of them aren't that bright. Most of them you can tie up, you know, like a little piglet and leave them there squealing in their own mess pretty easily without, you know, having to have any, you know, no fuss, no fuss. You just got to put up with a few insults, but. That's what we're going to look at. Graphic 4, please. This is Port claiming that he's the most influential. He's a crafty deceiver, and he's claiming that he is the most influential. We're going to look at his introduction to his show. He presents himself as something that he's not. So in his intro, his co-host lies about it, and he lies about it. Chad Oban is also lying to deceive the people by claiming that Port is a right-wing conservative. Clip 5, please.
You're listening to Plain Talk, the voice of North Dakota politics. I'm your host, Rob Port. If I sound distracted, it's because I've been busy covering this story all morning. I'm joined by my co-host, Chad Oban.
He's right of center, I'm left of center, both sides of the political spectrum.
I think it's cathartic. I think it's a necessary and proper debate. I'm glad we're having it.
And honestly, we have to do better.
Yeah, you need to do better. They're claiming, so this is the lie they're telling the public. This is they are the voice of politics in North Dakota, and they're telling this lie of we are the center. So he's over here and he's over here. If you find yourself outside of the realms of this, you're a radical. But in reality, they're both in the ditch on the left side.
Yeah.
If you're not outside of that, you're not mainstream. That's what people watch this. They watch it over and over again, and they get tied up in this because they're smooth talkers and they're intelligent and they can talk about all this stuff, but they're deceiving the people on what is socially acceptable. And that's why I look at this and I'm like, wow, we had like you got attacked by the rainbow crowd, and the rainbow crowd even came. They know that that's 10%, 5 to 10% of the population,
if that,
right? And so or that supports it. So these people were against you because of that, but they even went to the point of you had one of the rainbow guys claiming to have been like
somebody sent me a screenshot of that.
Yeah, so you have this situation where they know that they're not in the majority, so they attack you on the level of saying you're phobic, and then they attack you on the level of saying you're one of us and the public should reject you because of that.
Yeah.
And then they make up other stories and attack you on these other different, like you're going through a breakup, you're going through all these different problems.
A divorce and a breakup.
Well, that one wasn't, the lady didn't do that. It was some other manipulation, which I corrected on there. But
there was confusion, though, because they definitely depicted that somebody, which actually, if you think about it, that shows a greater level of conspiracy, that somebody went to that effort to try and make it look like she's referring to me.
So we're going to get into the debate. Right. So yeah, we're gonna get into the debate because Rob Port had challenged me to come on his show, and I called him up and I was like, or texted him back, you know, and I was like, yeah, man, I'll come, but I can't come on that one day, the one option that he gave me. So, but this is what he said, because he's squealed now. He's come back and he's, you know, hey, look at this guy, and he's trying to present this as, without even saying my name, he's trying to act like this guy's crazy. And he ended up, you know, I mean, I think he realizes there's a huge liability there in silencing a witness. But so let's look at graphic 5, please.
The video.
Yeah, and you've got this. It's just a graphic. That's the one you've got right there. So this is where he starts out. He puts me on his website, and he says, this guy dressed up like me to explain how I'm a shill for the Freemasons, the Communists, the FBI, and Latin community. No, I think you're a shill for the communist, Freemasons, and FBI, and the Latin-speaking, conspiring frat boy community. Not the Latinos, not the Spanish, the secret society that speaks in Latin. That's what he has on his website. So he acts like this statement he put up on his website means something different than what it says. He acts like it means something different than what the encyclopedia says. So I'm kind of going, oh, okay. But you see down there, he puts up, this is absolutely zero informational content, but it's amusing. Yeah, I'm trying to get views. I'm trying to be amusing. I'm trying to draw the attention of people and get their attention and show them what they're doing. I'm trying to show the younger generation so that they're not led astray. I think that's really important. I'm trying to market to them. But the zero informational content, I respond back to that. And I said, zero informational content. The intro is a recording of a spy stalking me, trying to get me to go along with stealing millions of taxpayer dollars. If the introduction has evidence in it, and you're going to sit there and say this whole thing has zero informational content, you're telling a bold-faced lie. Either you didn't understand just the introduction, but it's not zero informational content. And he had a whole bunch. He had at least 2 people that came on here and commented. He went back and threw eggs in his face and was like, well, you got zero informational content, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a just ridiculous non sequitur. The problem is, why can't he acknowledge that I'm saying this is my thesis statement, and this is what's going to mess him up so bad? I've said it over and over again. You claim to be the biggest voice of politics in North Dakota, Rob Port. I'm saying I'm the nation's most important unheard eyewitness. If you can't get that right, and I end up getting heard, where does that leave you? It's bad news for him. You know what I mean? It can be taken as a crime, and I think he realizes it. I think that's why he's let it stand. If you look down at the bottom, you'll see Tyler Allers, one of the thugs, the thug bullies that tried to bully me off the internet on Rob Port's website. And he's saying, "Dear sir, I've officially reported you to my boss with the Illuminati, which is the high-ranking Freemasons."
Yep.
And he tells me I got 72 hours to leave the state or the country or something. But it's that kind of thuggery that Rob Port leaves it up on his website. So it's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, if somebody were to get on my website and say, Josiah, make a threat against you, I'm gonna hide that, document it, and I'm gonna respond to it.
Yeah.
But he leaves, that's the thing about Rob Port. He leaves the threats and the intimidation up. And that's what's so loud to show his character. What you're seeing when you see him pretend to be so nice and kind, if he was so nice and kind, he wouldn't leave that garbage up, intimidating people and starting fights on his website.
Yeah. And didn't you say that they do delete other
He's edited.
comments? Like,
I got one, and I didn't put that together, but I got on his website one day and he was getting slaughtered. Like 12 out of 13 of the people that responded were calling him like, but they were using lewd names. I mean, they're using foul names. It would be right to take them down, but I'm looking at that going, wow, he's having to hide. Like I think it was 12 out of 13 were against him. He probably had to take down like 5. But people were calling him a communist. People that see that were mad about him, but just didn't have the patience to respond the way that I'm responding, because I want to stay in the conversation and not be kicked off the platform.
Speaking of patience, I've never done this before, but there's a first time for everything. I drank so much caffeine. Hold the fort for like 60 seconds. I gotta go. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Just keep it rolling.
So, all right. So, Rob Port's an investigator. He says he's going to do an investigation or report on what, that's pretty loud. So he leaves it here. There's nothing here, is what he's saying in this debate. this podcast that I put forward has no content. That's a lie. That's when I say you're being robbed blind. You're being robbed of the truth. I'm being robbed of my voice. When I'm being told that I can't talk and be heard, I'm intimidated off of the platform, you got a real serious problem. You know, that's a constitutional violation. Whenever you say we're going to censor the opponents by letting somebody bully you off my website, that's what Rob Port's doing. So I'm getting ready to show that Port is a complete and total fraud. He's thrown it to his supporters to see what they think. They're going to prove that he's a fraud and that he's deceived them. Graphic 6, please. So here it is. Rob Port said, I asked him the question. I say, can you show, Zero content. The introduction is a spy stalking me, trying to get me going along with stealing millions. Can you say that anything that I've said is not true? And he comes back and he says, we're going to throw it to the audience. We'll let them decide for themselves. So they come back, and this is what's so funny is they come back and they say, a lady says, Colin Marks, she says, Republican here. I actually think Rob is very moderate. In the last year I've followed him, left-leaning, maybe, which is where everyone should be if anyone wants to change. Okay, great. Look, I don't have any problem. You're left-leaning. They acknowledge left-leaning. Rob, that's the whole thing. Rob says he's not left-leaning. Rob responds, that's very flattering, Colin, but I think I'm good where I'm at. And I'm always amazed when people think I'm left of center. I'm for free trade, low taxes, and government generally leaving us alone. Classically liberal. Liberal is left too. So what you've got is you've got Rob Port, because we just played the introduction now of him claiming to be right of center. And now they're saying left-leaning. And then somebody else comes in and says the same thing. Let's get graphic 7, please. This is the encyclopedia. Okay, this is the encyclopedia saying left-leaning politics prioritizes social equality, collective welfare, and government intervention to address systemic inequalities. This spectrum spans from moderate progressivism, which he just said he was progressive, and social democracy like the U.S. Democratic Party. So that's the dictionary, the encyclopedia definition of left-leaning. So there's really no debate there. Rob Port is a fraud. He gets on and says, I'm right. He tells these people right here, I'm right. And they say, we like you because you're left. Well, I'm not opposed to the people. I'm just pointing out that they know that he's left. He admits that he's left. But still, when he goes to the public, he can't really debate that and win that debate. But still, when he goes to the public, he lies to them. He goes and attacks the Republican Party leadership, calling them all kinds of names and demanding that they resign and be replaced because he wants to change the party that he's opposed to. That's why I say Rob Port is a fraud. Now, this is where it gets good, because this is where his supporters call on him to take some action. Got it. We're on 8. Display 8, please.
Okay. Thank you.
So
he's left. I'm sorry. I left. When nature calls, you don't want to leave a message.
So Jamie Seltzer, this is awesome, dude. He sees it and he says, I have a fantastic idea for Halloween. Thank you. He also says, I will donate $50 to your favorite charity if you do an episode of your podcast dressed up like this guy. So I think that was a fantastic, and then I said, wow, this is cool, man. So Jared Thomas Spoor, he says, as will I. So now people are paying. Zachary Sherwood says he'll pay for it. So you have this group of...
Double it.
Yeah, double it. Okay, so Rob Port has the opportunity to make some money right here, baby. You can come on this show, Rob Port. We'll set you up down here. Dress code, you know what it is. And we won't have the scheduling problem anymore. We'll produce it. You won't have to worry about going back and editing the show to take out all the parts to change it and then meeting later and talking about what everybody said the way you defamed Josiah after you did that with him. We'll just do a straight cut like we're doing right here. We won't edit it. Everybody will get to see what it really says. Wait a minute. Ruby Martinson says he's in as well. He's going to give you $50. Rob Port, this would be hilarious. I'll plug a great nonprofit for your friends and give you some of those donations. They're going to set up a foundation for you, Rob. These people are going to literally make you a whole bunch of money for coming on this show and dressing like me. Wait, a headband wasn't. You didn't have that on last week. No, we can do without that. All right.
It's helps because I didn't.
Yeah, this would be hilarious. I'll plug a great nonprofit for your friends to give some of those donations to. America, they've got foundations that are going to donate for this, Rob. This is huge. Jamie Seltzer's in. These people are, let's get it hopping. That's what's up, man. So, there, the invitation's out there. You're welcome to come on this show anytime, Rob, and explain. Here's the question. This is the one question that I want. The one thing that I want you to do. I want you to explain to the world because I realize my case destroys your argument and your hatred of Trump and all these things that I'm not even going to get into right now because we're running out of time. But can you say Ferris Broxton claims to be the nation's most important unheard eyewitness in the grand conspiracy investigation? He claims to be an eyewitness against the person that signed the FISA warrant against Trump. He claims that Sally Yates, the person that signed the FISA warrant against Trump, was over Fulton County, Georgia, and that she said that she would fix the elections. You're an investigator. Will you find some good questions and look at the evidence and try to determine if this is real? Or are you fake news? Are you going to lie to the people and deceive the people? That's your challenge. Let me know, Rob. Thanks for being here, Josiah.
Yep.
Y'all have a great day.